So today we're going to be discussing the athletic nutrition. We're going to go over some basics of what an athlete should be eating before training or for a match. Next slide. The benefits of proper nutrition. So proper nutrition not only affects you as an athlete, it affects your overall well-being. So things like your stamina and your energy will increase if you're eating properly, your concentration, so you're not going to be making too many mistakes during training because you're very focused. Your muscle recovery, so now this is after training, the importance of eating enough, and injury prevention. So down the road, when we consistently eat properly, we're going to avoid certain injuries that are caused by lack of proper nutrition, as well as illness. So you're not going to find yourself getting sick or getting a cold as often as you typically would. Next slide. What is a balanced diet? So a balanced diet consists of everything found in the pyramid. So we're going to break down what the pyramid consists of. So at the very bottom, you're going to find water, which is very important for humans in general. Now, at the very bottom of the pyramid, you're going to see your vegetables and your fruits. So these are things that you're going to get your vitamins and minerals from. And vitamins are very important to boost your immunity. So that's how you're going to prevent yourself from getting your common cold as frequently throughout the year. Energy source as well. So vitamins help you produce energy. Now we're going to look at our next section, which is going to be your carbohydrates. Now carbohydrates are your main source of energy. So things like rice, oatmeal, oats, your whole grains, quinoa, bread, pasta, things like that are where you get your energy from. Now the next part is going to be your protein. So protein can be found in things like your dairy products, like milk, yogurt, cheese, or milk alternatives like almond milk and oat milk, things like that, tofu. Then you can also find them in your animal products like your lean meats, chicken, fish, eggs. You can find them in beans as well and eggs. And lastly, you'll see your healthy fats is going to be at the very top, and it's the smallest portion of your diet. So fats can be found in your olive oils, your avocado, your fish and beans as well. So all of these things are really important overall for your overall well-being because they help your brain development. So at a young age, it's really important that we're getting all of these nutrients in because it helps your brain development. Your vitamins and minerals help your bone health as well as your growth. So let's try to keep in mind all of these sections when we put food on our plate. Next slide. Calories. So the importance of adequate food intake. So next slide. Are you fueling your body properly? So before we get into anything else, we have to define what a calorie is. So a calorie is a unit of energy, which means the food that you're ingesting, the food that you're eating is your energy source. How much calories do you need? So that's going to have to be based on your age, your body size, and the activity's duration and intensity. So as most of you train 3 to 4 times a week, you have games on the weekends. So it's really important that we're taking in the minimum calories of 2,000 to 2,200, which is quite a lot. So that's really important because you deplete a lot of your energy when you do your hard exercises. Always finding the balance. If you look at the photo on the slide, you'll see that if you're not eating enough and you're burning a lot of calories, that's how you lose weight. Or if you're eating too much calories and you're not exercising enough, that's how you gain weight. So what we're trying to attain here is a balanced diet. So that's having the right amount of calories versus the right amount, the same amount of calories burned. Next slide. Now, what happens when you don't eat enough? So like I said, when we're not eating enough, we're also not getting enough nutrients to our body. So overall, it affects your well-being, and it also affects your performance as an athlete. So you start seeing a decline in your performance, like your stamina. You're going to find yourself feeling more fatigued earlier into training or in your match. You might find yourself making a little more mistakes than you typically would if you had eaten properly. So that affects your decision making, your concentration, and things like that. So it's really important that we're getting enough nutrients into our body, because long term, this is how the injuries will slowly trickle in. So an extreme example would be if you're not eating enough nutrients in your diet, not getting enough nutrients in your diet, you're going to find yourself maybe with a stress fracture, because now that's affecting your bone health. So these are things that we're going to try to avoid later on in our careers, right? So really concentrate on eating properly every single day, whether it be for before training or afterwards. So pre meals and post meals are incredibly important in an athlete's diet. Next slide. So let's talk about carbohydrates, your body's main energy source. Next slide. 1 second. So there's two types of carbohydrates that we're going to discuss here. You have your complex carbs, which you'll find in the photo on the left side, which would be your starchy vegetables such as potatoes, sweet potatoes, beans, your whole grains like brown rice, quinoa, and oats, and in vegetables as well as your pastas. Now, what are complex carbs? So complex carbs just take a bit longer for your body to digest. So that makes you feel like you're fuller for a longer period of time. And because it takes so long to digest, it slowly releases the energy. So it's really important that we get these complex carbs in 2 to 4 hours prior to training or a match or any exercise, so that as you're performing the exercise or whatever fitness activity you have, that energy is slowly released as you're performing. Therefore, you're not going to feel fatigue sooner. Now let's go over your complex or your simple carbs. So now simple carbs will be found on the right side. So let's take a look at those examples. You'll find a lot of processed foods like candies, sodas, your pastries like donuts and cupcakes, sugary cereals, and white bread and white pasta. So now what are simple carbs? Simple carbs just means that it's processed much quicker than your complex carbs. So if you're not using that energy immediately, that's going to be stored as fat. So for example, if you're at home and maybe you've had a couple cupcakes or maybe a glass of soda, and you're not doing anything, you're just maybe sitting around watching TV. Now your body thinks, all right, well, we're not really exerting energy right now, so let me just store this energy for later as fat. But simple carbs aren't always bad. So a good source of simple carbs would be your fruits and milk. So those two contain really good simple carbs. So for example, if you go into training, it's okay to have a piece of fruit like banana or an apple maybe 30 minutes prior to training, because that's a good source of quick sugars that you can use immediately into your training session. What we want to do is avoid processed foods. So all of the things that have a lot of additives, a lot of added sugars, those are the things that we want to avoid. We want to go for more natural sources. You want to look at the whole food rather than things that you get in packaging, and just like shown on the right-hand side. So your pastries, cakes, those are the things that we can enjoy in moderation. It's okay to have it maybe once or twice a week, but we want to keep that at a minimum. Next slide. Okay. Protein, the building blocks of the body. Next slide. So protein, like just animal products such as your lean meats, your chicken, as well as fish, or you can find them in your dairy products. such as your milk and tofu. Why is protein so important? So it's really important as athletes because we perform a lot of strenuous fitness activities. So during exercise, while we're training or playing, we're creating little tears in our muscles. So the way our body will fix that is by sending protein to those muscles for recovery. So it's really important that we're getting the enough amount of protein for our muscle recovery. It helps with your growth as well. Why as athletes, you need more protein than the average person because you're extremely active. You're constantly breaking down your muscles. So we always need to replenish our protein as we've exerted ourselves. But that does not mean that you need that in excess. So like I said earlier, we always want to find a balance. Next slide. Okay. Fats. What are healthy fats? Next slide. So there are 3 types of healthy fats, and as I discuss them, I want you to really concentrate on your saturated fats. But why are fats so important in an athlete's diet? Well, overall, fats help protect our organs, they support our cell growth, and it helps create hormones in our body, promotes healthy skin, and it's also an energy source. So when you find yourself doing a moderate exercise, that's when your body starts using energy for fat. It helps as well with vitamin absorption in our digestive system. So vitamins such as A, E, and K are really important to our body, and they need fats to be absorbed in our intestines. So based on the photo displayed on the slide, you want to get your main source of fat in your saturated fat content, such as your olive oil, your avocados, your fish, chia seeds, and flax seeds. Saturated fats can be found in your animal products, right? So for those of you that eat animal products, it's okay. Don't feel bad for eating them, but that's where we go back to finding a balance. So you don't want to eat it in excess because too much saturated fat can cause high cholesterol. Now, if you look over on the trans fat section, trans fat can be really found in all of your processed foods. So you want to avoid those as much as possible. Next slide. Hydration. Hydration is really important for athletes, and we'll go over why that's very important. Next slide. Are you drinking enough water? So a general rule of thumb would be drinking 8 to 10 glasses a day, and that's the bare minimum. For those of us that live in warm climates, such as the Philippines, we really want to try to exceed that because we are constantly at a state of heat. So the way your body responds to heat is by sweating. That's how it regulates its temperature. So because we probably sweat more often than those that live in cooler climates, we really need to concentrate on our water intake as well. How it affects your performance is that you're probably going to find yourself with a little less concentration. You're going to find yourself feeling a bit more tired earlier into your training or in a match, which you really want to avoid. And in an extreme case, you can find yourself feeling heat exhaustion. So you might feel dizzy, you might feel like fainting, things like that. So you really want to try to avoid that. Now, the recommended amount of water that you need to ingest before training is 500 to 600 milliliters 2 to 3 hours prior, which is really important. You want to get those fluids in before training, so that while you're training, you don't experience the dehydration, you don't experience the fatigue. Now, you can have little sips a bit before, but you want to hit the 2 to 3 hour mark more than anything. During training, every time you get a chance for a water break or a halftime, things like that in a match, you want to ingest 150 to 300 milliliters of water. At this time, you can also reach for a sports drink like Gatorade or Pocari, or if you want a more natural alternative, you can go for coconut water. These things are important because they give you a bit of energy boost because they contain carbohydrates. They also contain potassium that help you prevent cramping, right? So we've been working really hard in a match or in training, and we've exerted ourselves and we're losing a lot of water. So it's important to get that maybe little extra carb, sodium, as well as potassium in our systems. So that's really, really important. And if you can, drink it during training or in a match. Now, afterwards, I would say even go on a higher end of this. Try to hit your 1000 milliliter within an hour after the game or training. Now, at that point, you have depleted all of your water sources probably. So you want to get all of that water back in as much as possible. But even after the hour, you need to hit your, you need to keep drinking water. So I always suggest athletes to have water bottles with them at all times, wherever you are. Take a quick sip, constantly drinking throughout the day. That's really, really important. Next slide. So we're gonna look at some pre-exercise meals. So these are just gonna be some examples of what your meal should look like before an exercise. Next slide. Okay. So you want to eat a larger meal 2 to 4 hours prior to activity because it's going to be too heavy if you eat it any closer to your fitness activity. So things like a peanut butter and on toast with some banana, or toast with vegetable and avocado. Those are some good breakfast ideas that you can do if you have a morning match or a morning training session. What you want to focus on is eating more carbohydrates because you need your energy, a little bit of protein, but try to keep the fat on the lower end because you don't want to feel sluggish in your training session and you don't want to feel heavy. So keep the fat on the lower end. Another example, if you have an afternoon game or training session, would be a nice chicken wrap, maybe like a whole wheat wrap or like a spinach wrap, something that's more whole grain based, a salad or some fruits. Now, closer to training, so 30 minutes to an hour prior to your activity, you can have a little snack just to give you a little more boost of energy. So something like banana and almonds, or a granola bar, or any fruit that you can get your simple sugars from. That's the right time to eat it, which should be 30 to an hour. Next slide. Okay. Post-exercise meals. So now post-exercise meals, very crucial for your recovery. So let's look at some examples of what that could look like. Next slide. Okay. So 30 minutes after your activity, you want to get something in your body quickly, as quick as possible, especially when we sit in traffic on our way home or on our way to whatever our next destination could be. So something like graham crackers with peanut butter or any nut butter of your preference, natural juice like coconut water or orange juice, which has vitamin C and natural sugars. So we want to try to avoid, again, the processed foods with the additives. You want to look at maybe yogurt with some fruit. You can add some granola on there. Or the simplest one would be chocolate milk. Chocolate milk has your simple sugars and your protein and carbs. So like I said, it goes straight into your system right after training. Now, an hour after your activity, you want to look at your big meal. So just like the photo here of Cristiano Ronaldo, if you look at his plate, he has his stir-fried vegetables, he has grilled chicken breasts, an avocado, mashed, and some bread on the side. So he has all of his bases covered. So that's something that you really want to look for. So something like grilled chicken and steak with some rice, stir-fried vegetables. If you don't eat meat, you can go for your meat alternatives like tofu, and your beans like chickpeas has really high protein. The next option could be your chicken and fish. Fish, again, great with protein, great with your fats. With your whole grain pasta, a side salad, and some steamed vegetables and fruit. And for a dessert, you can go for frozen yogurt with a little granola, or you can do a smoothie bowl, something like that to give yourself a little treat. So overall, we just want to look for a balanced diet every single time we eat. We want to have as much color on our plate as possible. So try to eat as many different kind of vegetables as you can. Next slide. So lastly, this is how I would like you to see what eating is for as an athlete. So you want to fuel yourself. You're fueling yourself with clean energy, good food. You want to hydrate. You want to refuel so that now you're repairing all of the damage that you've done during training, your little micro tears, right? So you want to repair, and that'll lead to recover. And then you start the cycle all over again. So try to look at your healthiest options as possible, limit your processed foods, and always drink your water. And that's it. Thank you.